Yes.
Good evening. This is a regular meeting of the conference of the Council of the Township of Montclair. A notice of this meeting has been provided to the Montclair Times, the Herald News, and the Star Ledger. Notice has also been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Roll call, please.
Mayor Jackson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor McMahon.
Here.
Councilor Baskerville.
Present.
Councilor Hurlock.
Present.
Councilor Russo.
Present.
Councilor Schlager.
Here.
Councilor Spiller.
Present. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There have been presented to us the minutes of September 10th, 2019. Are there any additions or corrections? I will move them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will come back to public comment. We do have a number of proclamations this evening. The first one, suicide prevention, we'll do a little bit later because we're waiting for some of the people who are going to receive it will be getting here a little bit late. The next one is declaring September 15th to the 21st as Mitochondrial Disease Awareness Week. As I'm sure some of you noticed, thanks to Department of Community Services, we had the lighting at Edgemont Park changed to reflect that week, and thankful for that. Also, the issue becomes a little bit closer to home for us in the town because of our former councilman, Carrie Afric. His nephew and niece lost a child as a result of this disease, and we are thinking of them in our thoughts and prayers, but also hoping that those who are conducting research will be making some good strides, and I think we're going to get an update on that from them that we'll probably read at a later point on some of the research that's being done. I'm going to read it. Whereas mitochondria are specialized compartments present in every cell of the body except red blood cells, mitochondria are responsible for creating more than 90% of the energy needed by the body to sustain life and support organ function. And whereas mitochondria fail, less and less energy is generated within the cell. Cell injury and even cell death follow. If this process is repeated throughout the body, whole organ systems begin to fail. And whereas once considered rare, mitochondrial disease is now thought to affect 1 in 5,000 people, making it the second most commonly diagnosed serious genetic disease after cystic fibrosis. Although the disease primarily affects children, adult onset is becoming more common. Researchers have discovered links between mitochondrial dysfunction and other conditions, including Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, diabetes, cardiac issues, and some cancers. And whereas Mitochondrial Disease Awareness Week, observed annually during the third week of September, is commemorated globally to educate and increase awareness about mitochondrial disease. During this week, affected individuals, their families, friends, and co-workers and fellow students join together to sponsor a variety of events to promote outreach and education about mitochondrial disease and the broader impact of mitochondrial dysfunction on human health. And whereas scientists believe that in focusing on mitochondrial dysfunction, they may be able to devise effective treatments and potential cures for mitochondrial disease and help millions of people who suffer from these diseases. And whereas the United States Mitochondrial Disease Foundation is a member of International Mito Patients, IMP, which is securing worldwide buildings and landmarks to be lit green, the international color for mitochondrial disease awareness. And whereas the green illumination at the memorial at Edgemont Park and the municipal building during the third week of September symbolizes the international efforts to cure mitochondrial disease. Now, therefore, by virtue of this proclamation, the Council of the Township of Montclair does hereby declare September 15, 2019 through September 21st, 2019 as Mitochondrial Disease Awareness Week in Montclair, as a time for people to come together and display the passion and strength of those working to improve the lives of those affected by mito, and I so move.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilor Russo, Blindness Awareness Month.
Yes. Thank you. Is anyone here for this tonight? Blindness awareness. I'll tell you what, we'll go right down here. I think there's two of these. Yep.
Take two this small.
Thank you. Come on, stay right here. This is Blindness Awareness Month proclamation by the Council of the Mayor of Montclair. Whereas blindness and profound vision loss affect more than 160,000 people in New Jersey, numbers expected to grow as the population ages. Whereas the National Eye Institute projects the number of people with serious visual impairment or blindness in the U.S. will double to more than 8 million in 2050. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that about 61 million adults in the U.S. are at high risk for serious vision loss. Whereas it is important to make residents of Montclair aware of the prevalence of vision impairment and the critical importance of vision rehabilitation services, counseling, and training that can help people with vision loss adapt to their loss of sight. Whereas the Vision Loss Alliance Group has locations in Morris, Essex, and Bergen counties and is the only comprehensive non-residential vision rehabilitation program. Whereas Vision Loss Alliance of New Jersey, one of the state's longest-serving nonprofits for adults with vision loss, is working to expand services related to education, independence, and overall well-being. Now, therefore, by virtue of this proclamation, the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair do hereby proclaim October 2019 as Blindness Awareness Month in Montclair and congratulate Vision Loss Alliance of New Jersey on its 76 years of exemplary work to increase public awareness about eye disease and eye care and help us understand the challenges our vision-impaired loved ones, friends, and neighbors and co-workers deal with on a daily basis. Signed by Mayor Robert Jackson and the entire council. So I'm presenting this to you. You're from Vision Loss Alliance, right? Just want to say, Chris, that I had 2 cataracts removed 3 years ago. Greatest thing I ever did, so now I can see what I'm doing, and I can read better. But that's something people have to be aware of. That comes up and creeps on you, and creeps up on you. You need to get that done, and need to take care of your eyes, so it's all yours. Go ahead.
Sure. I don't know if you're aware of the statistics, but one in 40 adults over the age of 50 are affected by some sort of vision loss in the state of New Jersey. And it's expected to double to 1 in 20 within the next 30 years as the population ages. The most common types of vision loss or common causes are glaucoma, cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, and macular degeneration. Two of these, cataracts and glaucoma, can be prevented by regular routine health care, going to your eye doctor. My own grandmother lost her sight due to glaucoma because back at that point in time, you didn't go to the doctor annually and have your pressure checked. So by the time they discovered it, it was too late and she lost her sight. So it's very important to get annual health care, to go in and get your pressure checked, to watch your diabetes is a big cause of blindness as well. We have a program, I don't know if you're aware, but we have a program in the First Lutheran Church here in Montclair. It's been here since 2010. And in that time, we've helped probably, I'd estimate, about 75 people but through programs that we have there. We have a day program there that runs on Fridays. So I thank you very much for recognizing our cause here, and I wish you the best of luck, and please recommend people come to the program in Montclair. It's open to anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work. Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Anybody here for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day? So this is a proclamation declaring the 15th of October to be Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. Whereas pregnancy and infant loss is a common occurrence, but one that is usually not discussed And whereas many Montclair parents and families have suffered a miscarriage, stillbirth, or the death of an infant during delivery or shortly after birth. And whereas Montclair wishes to acknowledge the profound grief experienced by families who suffer the death of a baby or infant. And whereas increased awareness of the causes and impacts surrounding pregnancy and infant loss may lead to greater understanding, support, and resources in Montclair. And whereas local nonprofit organization Pockets of Light is one such resource providing families with the community and support system with which to grieve and heal. And whereas a day of remembrance honors the lives of children taken far too soon and supports grieving parents, grandparents, siblings, and other family members whose lives are forever altered by the heartbreak of losing a child. And whereas promoting awareness of the challenges faced by those parents and families is a positive means of establishing support and understanding. And whereas events such as the second annual community scavenger hunt this October, sponsored by Pockets of Light, and declarations of support from community leaders are positive ways to raise this awareness and bring the people of Montclair together. And whereas in 1988, President Reagan proclaimed October as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and whereas recognizing pregnancy and infant loss awareness today would enable the people of Montclair to consider how, as individuals and communities, they can meet the needs of bereaved mothers, fathers, and family members, and work to prevent the causes of these deaths. And whereas the 15th day of October is recognized in parts of the United States and in many other jurisdictions around the world as a day of remembrance and awareness of pregnancy and infant loss, now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair declare the 15th day of October to be Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day, and urge our citizens and all agencies and organizations to unite on that day in remembrance of all babies gone too soon, in support of all families grieving the death of their baby at any time during pregnancy or infancy, and in dedication to a healthy pregnancy and the prevention of these tragedies. Signed by the Mayor and Council. I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
Erin, Tom, please.
Thanks. My name is Tom Truxillo. This is my wife, Erin. And first of all, we'd like to thank Mr. Mayor and the council for declaring October 15th as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day in Montclair. By doing so, you acknowledge the unique grief of bereaved parents who have suffered from such a tragic loss. It's been 10 years since our daughter, Haley, was stillborn. And there is not a day that goes by that we still don't remember our baby girl and acknowledge the impact she has had on our lives. Over those 10 years, we have come to realize that we were very fortunate to receive a tremendous amount of compassion and support from our community following our loss. We have also come to realize that not all bereaved parents are as fortunate. The devastating trauma of losing a child during or after pregnancy can be compounded by our community's inability to address the loss and provide support to bereaved parents, often leaving parents feeling isolated in their grief. We hope that promoting awareness of pregnancy and infant loss will increase the likelihood that these families will receive the understanding and support they need. Pockets of Light is a nonprofit organization started by 3 bereaved mothers from Montclair with the mission to provide support, compassion, and hope to parents that have experienced the loss of a pregnancy or infant. They will be holding their second annual community scavenger hunt in Anderson Park on Saturday, October 19th. We would love to see you all there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Erin, did you want to say something? Or?
No, I just thank you so much for the heartfelt response from you, Mayor Jackson, and we just appreciate your time and the opportunity for bereaved parents to remember their babies in October. So thank you.
Thank you.
If I can, I just want to commend Erin and Tom because they turned a real tragedy, personal tragedy for them, into supporting other people who are going through or may go through, God forbid, but will go through a similar circumstance. And I just think it is just beyond admirable what you have done to sort of turn this around and make it supportive for other people, because I think you could have just kind of insulated yourselves and turned into yourselves in your grief, but you've used it for strength and strengthening others, and I think you are to be commended. I know you don't do it for that purpose, but really it's an example of 2 very special human beings. I just want to tell you how much I admire both of you.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone here to receive a proclamation for Ruth Duff Eager? No, nobody tonight? Okay. Well, we'd like to congratulate Ruth Duff Eager, a lifelong Montclair resident who turns 100, and that's a marvelous milestone. And Ruth has 5 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, and is a big fan of the New York Yankees, and still roots them on as much as she can. So we congratulate Ruth.
We'll move it. Just move it.
Yes, sorry, yes, and I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And as I said, we'll be coming back to the suicide prevention when the reps from Mountainside get here. Is that correct, Mrs. Ganberry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Public comment. We'll be happy to hear from members of the public at this time on any issues.
Good evening, William Scott. Tonight, I'm going to be giving a different position that I have in the township. I'm a member of the Rise of Mount Zion Baptist Church. I'm a trustee, and this past weekend, we had a community outreach weekend, and I just wanted to say thank you to the mayor for stopping by, and Councilman Hurlock for stopping by, but a special thanks to Councilwoman Bassville. You support all the different activities throughout the town, and obviously in the 4th Ward. We had an opportunity to really enhance our affair this weekend, again, with popcorn making, face painting, and balloon making. I took the reins of the popcorn machine for about an hour, and it brought back old memories of the Jiffy popcorn maker, and I don't think I want to see any more popcorn for the rest of my life. But it was just a wonderful weekend on that in that area. Monroe, I think Mayor mentioned last year when you stopped by that they hadn't had a block party in that area for as long as you could remember. And for this being the second one, I was just really enjoyed seeing so many people come out, and it really showed the diversity of Montclair. It really did. So I was also cooking hamburgers, but I just wanted to thank, as I mentioned, the mayor, Councilman Hurlock, and Councilwoman Bassville for your ongoing support to make us and allow us to put on an event of that size, because it was overwhelming. I don't think the street at some point in time was large enough, but we got through the candidates. But again, just thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott.
Thank you for what you all are doing in the community.
Yeah, congratulations to you, Miss Pastor Campbell, and the entire congregation. It was really good. It was big last year, but it was beyond belief this year. And it was a good time was had by all, and that's my old stomping grounds. I lived right around the corner there for 21 years. Mrs. Scanterbury is up on Maple Avenue, right up the street. So it's always good to be back in the neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone else, public comment?
Hi.
Good evening.
Hello.
I feel like I'm going to look at every name so I'm putting faces to the right people. I'm Beth McFarland. I live on Trinity Place. I've been there for 30 years. I wrote an email to Sean back in August. Asked him to forward it to the other council members. I forwarded it myself the end of August. But I did hear from Ms. Baskerville, which was appreciated. I did have a response from Sean saying that I should forward my list of concerns or suggestions to the township manager. I had asked him, anyway, if he could possibly do that for me. So I just came so I could read my letter to you. Maybe you can check your inboxes from August 19th and get back to me, unless you want to chat tonight. I don't know. Anyway, I try not to get involved in parking conversations, but it now seems unavoidable. I have managed an apartment building, 31 Trinity Place, for over 30 years. I have a driveway to park in. My tenants are relying on purchasing parking permits for day and/or overnight parking. Many of my tenants have lived here over a decade, some over 2 decades. So thankfully, I don't have a lot of turnover. The only real obstacle I ever have in renting an apartment in that building is the parking situation. I have a new tenant, moving into an apartment in September. She was told there was an 11-month waiting list for a day permit. I honestly thought she was mistaken and went to the parking authority to clarify. She was not mistaken. I have no idea where she's going to park her car during the day to avoid being ticketed every 2 hours. I realize 2 lots are closed due to construction, which will bring more people to town who will have nowhere to park. Years ago, my tenants and I appealed to the town council to approve overnight parking on Trinity Place for residents who had the proper permit. They agreed, and after an initial trial period of a year, it was made permanent. I am now proposing the same thing for both Plymouth Street and the Crescent. I am proposing that if residents purchase a daytime parking permit from the town, it allows them to park on the street without moving their car every 2 hours. I am also starting to feel less optimistic that the needed road work in our neighborhood is going to be done. Trinity Place, Valley Road between Bloomfield and Hillside, Orange Road between Bloomfield and Hillside. I was under the impression that these roads would be repaired, repaved when the nearby construction projects were completed. Ms. Baskerville did address that in her response to me and clarified that for me, so that was good. So I guess I was mistaken on that. I thought that was kind of part of the big thrill.
What's your understanding now?
That they're not responsible. I didn't bring,
Who? You say who?
I was under the initial impression that as the Sienna and all these larger construction projects were in process, at the end of those projects, the developers responsible for it generally took care of the road work surrounding this new addition to our town. Maybe, I don't know, is that correct? Is that not correct? I don't have Ms. Baskerville's email with me, and I don't remember.
I have it. I have the email here. And then
Yes and no. Yes and
Yeah, the
no.
question was specifically about the fountain, and I was trying to explain to you
Well, it
about
was
how
also
the
about
fountain
the
was
street.
getting, how the fountain was going to be paid for through those monies. I have the email.
Right, the fountain,
Yeah.
I thought the MC Hotel was paying for that. That's not correct, though.
Good.
Yeah,
Oh, Valley.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we
Well,
also, just to clarify too,
And
if
our-
you remember,
on
we
our
did,
project
we're
on
doing,
Orange
we
Road.
did major water main improvements
I
through
know.
there. And we also had a water main break on Church. So before the end of the year, all of those will be, at least temporarily, certainly the one by the water main break will be temporarily milled and repaired.
on South Park,
On South
you mean?
Park, right, on South, what did I say, South Park. And then Orange Road from Bloomfield to essentially down to the pre-K will be milled and paved as well, as a temporary fix. And then permanently, I think in the next year or so, probably, I think the curbs are going to get done there.
And when's Trinity going to get it? Which is in
Trinity is
2020.
actually part of, I think, 2020. It's part of a state
It's like
program.
crazy.
Hmm?
It's crazy.
Meaning,
The length of time.
well, it's part of a state grant, so we're doing it when we get the state grant. So when a grant comes in, then we'll do the Trinity Place along with the fountain and all through there. But a lot of that was held up because of the water main work that had to get done.
So 2020 is Trinity Place and the fountain.
Yes.
For the fountain?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe, I should say, maybe early 2021, but it'll be in that time frame.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, as the councilman and I and another councilman know, and this body has discussed, the fountain work is ongoing with design. I know it went to finance as well to look at that piece. So the fountain design has been through EDC and Finance Committee, and we're working on moving that forward as well. But to your point, Mayor, that's also timed out to not occur until street work is ready to go. So we're
Right.
not building something, et cetera.
Has the design been approved?
It's literally being designed.
It's in the process.
So, no. I'm just curious.
A couple of the participants have reviewed it, and we're continuing to review it, but no.
Okay. Regardless of who is responsible for the work, it really needs to be done. It's an embarrassment to this town to have roads in such a miserable condition, and it's not fair to the residents who pay their taxes on a regular basis for such basic services. I think for residents, it seems like it's really basic. I understand it's not. I understand it's complex. I understand all that. But to be driving those roads daily is tough. The fountain we talked about. I don't know what happened with the valet parking discussion. To me, that's just another parking, interesting parking thing. I feel like, and maybe, I don't know, I feel like if a restaurant can buy a meter, what was it, they basically are buying the meters for $20. I think residents should be able to buy meters for $20. So if I have, I mean, is that possible for a resident to do?
You can, well, I should say, though, maybe the committee wants to speak to it. The Economic Development Committee looked at valet parking globally.
So, yes, short answer there. Mayor, you're answering it correctly and now nuanced. But yeah, the short answer is residents could. They would just reach out and buy it the same way a restaurant does. However, for both entities, we've been working with the EDC and the town manager to change that specifically so that you are no longer able to just buy a meter, whether you are a restaurant or an individual. And that now requires a much more extensive process that has a whole bunch of pieces around it that the manager could explain and provide information on. But it's not just buy a meter anymore for any entity.
Well, yeah, it's not like it's going to solve the parking problem. It's just going to, it's just going to sell meters, which would sell really quickly. So who is the township manager? Timothy Stafford. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
And you.
So those were my questions. I was really disappointed that I didn't hear back from anyone. Because so I guess this is the best venue.
Well, I
heard
checked
back
all
from
my
Jay,
I
I'm
checked
sorry.
all my
I did hear back from you, Sean, that I
I
should
checked all
forward
my
it to
emails
Jay.
and I don't have anything.
I just, and so when we were communicating, I also, started thinking about that after acknowledging that there is a horrific problem there. And I was wondering about the possibility of a shared service parking thing, perhaps with maybe Salvation Army or some of the business lots that sit in that area at night and appear to be empty. And I haven't gone out to try to follow up on it, but since, she's here now, I'm just wondering, what the rest of you think, if there's possibility for, some type of shared service. Is it worthwhile for us to go and find out? Because it seems like some of those lots, at least they appear to me to be pretty empty in the evening hours, which might resolve some of the problem on a temporary basis while we have construction going on. So I don't know, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that?
They would be willing.
Maybe that's something your committee could look at.
I just don't
Maybe
know,
with
do you
the
think
staff.
it would be worthwhile?
Well, I know it's been brought up to the Business Improvement District
Yeah.
at some of those meetings as well, Mr. Mayor, and I know, obviously, as they have connections to the business community, they were really exploring a broad parking plan throughout the township that also included having off-site parking for businesses where their employees would be outside of the ring of where the entity was. So I know that they're working on that piece and obviously have the direct connections with a lot of business in there to do that. I know they were also interfacing, Mr. Stafford can speak to this, our parking manager. They've formed a joint team between our parking director and a couple of people from the bid that are supposed to be checking in on those pieces. So they're supposed to report out to the Economic Development Committee,
Okay,
but
good.
we haven't heard anything on that yet. But that was one of the things on their list to look
Okay.
at.
It also came up at the planning board, the Warner Cable Building in Upper Montclair that recently was redone about a year ago. It's a privately owned building, and
Right.
the planning board wanted to do similar shared service parking, and they were not amenable to that. So,
Yeah.
There's some-
so I
It's
guess
a
it's
whole-
case-by-case basis, but it's certainly something we could look into.
I think it comes down to a liability thing, and I think it also just turns in, or I've seen it turn into like cowboy parking. that a generous person says, yes, you can use my lot, but then, it goes bad. It's littered, people are leaving their car when they're not supposed to. So, I mean, it's great if it could work, but I think it's tricky. I mean, to me, it would be easier to park overnight on streets. I mean, how, I get it, but as someone who's trying to rent an apartment to someone, and they say, where do I park? I mean, I really thought this woman was wrong when she told me there was an 11-month waiting list. People work at home. People don't get in their car at 7:30 in the morning and come home at 6 o'clock anymore. Some of them do. They might do that 2 days a week. So it's a real problem. Claremont, Fullerton, Trinity, the Crescent. The 3rd and 4th Ward has all these old buildings that are beautiful, that people want to live in. Everybody wants to drag everybody into Montclair. But when you come down to it, like, how do I live here? What do I do with my car? The fantasy of not owning a car, it's nice to dream of, but it's down the road. How do you buy your groceries without a car? Like, there's real nuts and bolts, just trying to live issues. So and my apartments are great. They're reasonable. People stay forever. There's nowhere to park. And I have 3 tenants that do not own cars out of 17 apartments. That's a lot. So, I don't even know where this woman's parking.
I think we get it, and the committee will take it under advisement, and there are different opinions about overnight parking in town.
Or
but
even daytime parking. Daytime permits are not available. They're not available.
I understand.
So, for 11 months, maybe there should be parking on a nearby street, parking onto, So how does this evolve?
The committee will take a look at it, the issue, and then make a recommendation through the TPAC committee. They'll take a look at it and make a recommendation to the entire council.
And then how does the public find out about what that recommendation might be?
It'll probably be in form of an ordinance or maybe a resolution, but there'll be time to speak about it at whatever meeting we have. But it'll be announced in public and
So I
make
just
comment.
come every month and say, hi,
No,
guys,
you just-
how's the parking?
No, you can just follow us on the website. You can follow it. And I'm sure Councilor Spiller will let you know when it's coming up.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah, and I think the key piece with why your email was forwarded to everyone is because there are a lot of differing opinions on that parking piece. Certainly, obviously discussed it with some of the members, and there also would say there's an equal number when I knock on doors of some people are very against it and some people are for it. So it's a difficult issue because we've kind of crossed and come to this a number of times, even as this body, in a number of areas. At least to date, this council has come down on the no overnight parking. I think that's an accurate statement. The group will attest to. So that's a difficult one right now in that the committee certainly can look at it. I can tell you, we'd have to figure out exactly which committee that would be, Mr. Mayor, but the challenge around that is really balancing the fact that there are at least equal number of people who don't want it that do. So that's a tough position, but at least to date, this council has kind of held the line of no overnight parking.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to seeing what happens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Marcia Almeida.
Good evening.
I have been a resident from Montclair for almost 50 years now. And when I moved to Montclair, there was only another Latino, Hispanic person that I knew of. Right now, there is a great percentage of residents in Montclair that are all Latinos or Hispanic descendants, including that I know of, and I counted it last year, there were 19 businesses owned by Latinos. And if you go down here to Glenridge Avenue and Pine Street, you will feel that you are in Colombia. If you go to, I think it's Day Street, It's a Dominican restaurant, a little corner there. The person that owned the Montclair Diner is Dominican. The person that owned the latte is married to a Dominican person, which is quite important. So what I'm saying with this is that you guys forgot about September 15 to October 15 is Hispanic Heritage Month. When you gave all your proclamation before, that was something you ignored. And this isn't the first time. In the last 50 years, I don't remember you had done it one time. So I think it's time that you give Latinos, especially that they are contributing to the taxes, like, and to the well-living of Montclair residents, a little credit. Thank you.
When is it?
September to October. So I'd like to thank you very much for coming here, and I'd also like to thank you for making us aware of that. In particular, you let me become aware of that a little earlier, and at that time, we were going to work on that, and you, in fact, volunteered to help me to craft the language, and I'm certain that I have the support of my colleagues, and we can get that on the agenda. We have at least one more televised meeting during that time period, and so I'd like to thank you so much for volunteering to help me to work on that, and I'm looking forward to getting that on the agenda. Thanks.
Oh, by the way, I forgot we have a Panamanian here too.
Okay, we want to get everybody in. Thank you so much.
And 50 years ago, Dad was here already 21 years, so should have got out a little bit more.
Marcia, I just want to make you aware this, the county freeholders tomorrow are holding a observance of Hispanic Heritage Month, and that's on September 25th at 5 o'clock at the Hall of Records, and so we got the invitation to that. A couple of people with the Montclair connection are going to be given recognition there, too. So I apologize to you because I have that relative connection in Puerto Rico, and I guess maybe we overlooked this, but we'll try to make sure we do it. As Councilor Baskerville said, I think you're right. The larger and larger number of people of Latino and Hispanic background in Montclair, and that's a great thing. Thank you.
Good evening, Sue Rubin, Helston Road.
Good evening.
Wanted to make a comment on development in Montclair. There was an article this past week in the Montclair Times, and I was heartened, frankly, by Mr. Russo's comment that ratables are coming in with this development, and that was something that was high on Mr. Russo's agenda. And then some of the complaints about parking that there was, maybe there'll be some lag time, but there was some public parking that was under development, and I'm no expert on what density is appropriate. But last weekend, my son, Montclair High School graduate, and his new bride, Montclair High School graduate, were married. That's the Glen Ridge Country Club. I should speak to them at a different point. But it was touch and go whether or not our 70 out-of-town guests would have lodging, because we didn't know if the MC was going to be done in time. That was going to be touch and go all the way through. But at the end, it was a big push, and they opened up plenty of rooms. We had between the MC and the George, 70 people at those two locations that were all out-of-town guests. The hospitality industry is alive and well in Montclair. The MC was fantastic. They were so professional. They dealt with us, a large crowd. They were a brand-new hotel. They were just great. And when you went in there at night, the bar scene, it was a well-heeled crowd. It was a very integrated crowd. It was a real Montclair scene there at night, which was pretty cool. And everybody was extremely pleased. So I don't know what, there's a lot of anti-development sentiment, and I know the planning board for what happened at Lackawanna Plaza, after a year or two, there's now a lawsuit that's going on. I don't compare Lackawanna Plaza to Penn Station and the destruction of Penn Station. I think there's been a lot of hyperbole about some of the stuff, although I'm not a preservation specialist, and I'm not denigrating the points that people of that interest group raise. I'm sure there's good points, heartfelt points. But all I can say is Montclair was a lot of fun for our people. Church Street in the morning, Raymond's for breakfast on Saturday when they were here, the museum, they went up hiking, they were all over the place. They had a great time. They said that both hotels did a fabulous job for them. So I don't know what those places are paying in taxes, but I know that there's been, there hasn't been as much this last reval for where I live, a lot of people were kind of level. And I don't know if that can be attributed to the millennials moving in. They don't have kids or they have babies. They'll buy our houses when we're all, moving along. The point is that there's probably a silver lining to a lot of the development that's happening in town. Montclair was really fun for those kids. And then they had an after party. And there had an abundance of bars to go to afterwards because the music has to shut off. So it was a big scene. Montclair's allowed to be fun. It's allowed to be a fun place. If there was a really cool night scene, and the MC and the George really did a great job for us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the wedding.
Congrats.
Mr. Rubin,
Congratulations.
before you go away, Mr. Rubin, my son also got married this weekend.
Oh, really? Congratulations.
And the first after party was at the MC.
Oh, there you go.
The second one was at Tierney's. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Congrats, Rich.
We didn't know that.
Hello, my name is Deirdre Malloy,
Good
and
evening.
I reside at 38 Lexington Avenue. I'm also on Housing and Environmental Commission. I'm making a personal remark, but first I want to say congratulations to the weddings. And you know what? The MC is great. I did go by and visit it. It seems to be really great, and Montclair is a great, Montclair is a really great place to.
Actually, not to interrupt, but brother-in-law stayed in the George. He loved that as well.
Wow.
That's a nice place as
Nice.
well. So, Montclair is doing some great things. I wanted to make a remark about my comments at the council meeting, the council conference meeting, regarding the statements that came from the planning board member. I usually choose my words very carefully, not because I'm afraid to speak my mind, because it is my First Amendment constitutional right to do so. But I am very explicit in the things that I say. And why am I making this remark? Because when I come to the podium, it is to give my opinion, whether personal or professional. And what I am shocked to have experienced is a message to me on my personal cell phone about remarks that I made at that conference meeting that were alleged to be incorrect, accusatory, and just flat out lies. Okay, so I do not know who the individual was that repeated that message, but I'm very clear of who was in the room. So I just want to put on the public record that if anybody has any questions or concerns about anything that I have to say, please, let me know. I don't have any problem sharing my opinion with anyone who makes any remarks, which I have done. And with regard to the response of that particular message I received on my personal phone, I responded accordingly. So I'm saying that to say, if anyone has anything to say or any complaints about anything I say, please approach me. I definitely am a little disappointed to understand that my words were misconstrued, especially when I'm commenting on public remarks that someone made on a public record and whatever else. I don't have anything to do with that. However, as it relates to this township, whether I'm a housing commissioner or an environmental commissioner, when you all do your work, if I support it, I'm going to support it 1,000%. If there's information that I think would be helpful for you to be aware of, myself and or my colleague, whether it's the Housing Commission or otherwise, will share that information with you. If I disagree, I'll make my point known. But I just wanted to put that on the record. At no time am I ever expecting that to happen to me again. And I am respectfully asking that it never happen again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from public comment? I will close the public comment period. I just wanted to acknowledge Dr. Parker, our interim superintendent. Good to see you. I know you're here for an item coming up later. Hopefully they'll get here in a few minutes. Thank you for being patient. Yes, sir. Please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council.
Good evening.
town manager, deputy town manager, and other distinguished members of this dais. I think this is a rather easy one. At the conclusion of the last council meeting, I spoke with Councilperson Schleyer about the need for left turn, green left turn traffic signals at some major intersections in the town. Three come to mind: the intersection of North Mountain, South Mountain, and Bloomfield Avenue, especially during rush hour. I have waited in line to turn left there through 5 or 6 changes of the light. Now that's quite a long time. And Councilperson, you agreed with me, did you not?
Yes.
And also the intersection of Watchung and Grove Street needs left turn signals on all 4 directions. And also the other one is Elm Street, where it meets Bloomfield Avenue, and Grove. It needs a left turn signals there. Would you agree? That's your ward.
Oh, yes. In fact, we're in the process of looking at that from a larger standpoint. So, yes, we're looking at that one.
I brought this issue up several years ago with now departed, or at least she's left, the town engineer, Ms. Kraft. And she said she would address it with the county, because these are all county roads. And she didn't, because I brought it up with her sometime later, and she said no, she hadn't contacted anybody. But I think it's time to really deal with it. I don't know if anybody would agree or disagree with that.
Sure.
I agree, certainly agree with what you're saying.
Certainly Grove and Elm and Bloomfield Avenue, they all need.
Yeah, I'm familiar with some of the other areas that you've identified, too. I don't know how many of the ones that you named are, actively being reviewed for that, but I know that we had started looking at the one at Elm. There's a process, and sometimes it involves the county, and sometimes it involves, us and our engineers, the county's engineer, when it involves them. We started looking at the one at Elm when we were looking at the whole development and the movement around the Lackawanna corridor.
Well, strangely enough, there are left turn signals if you're on Bloomfield Avenue. If you're going to make a left onto, say, Grove Street, or a left onto Elm Street, there is a signal there, right? There's the left turn signals. But there are no left turn signals if you're on Elm and or Grove. And the intersection of North Mountain and South Mountain, that really needs a signal. And all it would require is like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that to alleviate, 4 or 5, 6 cars would go by. And I don't know what kind of study is needed, but I hope that somebody will address it as soon as possible. And I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
County work. Thank you very much.
Anyone else on public comment? Okay, I will close the public comment period. Do we have, so 8 o'clock, right? Well, let's just do a couple of these pending ordinances then. A is, Madam Clerk. For A.
Okay. I wish to report that the ordinances have been published and posted, and copies have been made available to the public as required by law. The first ordinance is an ordinance to amend Section 202 Land Use Procedures of the Code of the Township of Montclair, New Jersey, to establish additional submission requirements for development applications.
Thank you. Anyone present wishing to comment on this ordinance?
Deirdre Malloy, member of the Montclair Housing Commission. I just wanted to say thank you for making these amendments. I think this is pretty thorough, especially as it relates to the item, as it relates to item G, the amendment to Montclair Code 202-29.1, administrative requirements amended as follows. Original survey signed and sealed by a New Jersey licensed surveyor, 20 copies. Copies don't matter to me, but I guess 20 is important. But I think more importantly is that the requirement be an ALTA ACSM survey, which is the American Land Title Association and American Congress on Surveys and Mapping survey, which is extremely thorough. And I'm not sure if these types of surveys were used before in certain developments or not. I would imagine they were, but I just think this is really great that you spelled it out like this. And to save me coming back for the next ordinance, I just want to thank you all for working on the other amendments, especially as it relates to inclusionary zoning ordinance of, not IZOs, the accessory dwelling units. So thank you. That's it. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll close the public hearing. Council comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just also like to note, and probably another spillover to another one of those committees, the Environmental Commission. I also want to really applaud the work of some of the Planning Board work and also Environmental Commission work. You'll see, as we all note in there, the energy efficiency checklist, the other components in terms of stormwater, all those other components that are now added in here. I know it's been something we've been working on in the Environmental Commission for how many years to kind of get something like this in here. So really great news that we've finally been able to add this piece. And I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who was part of that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. I'm going to go to the suicide prevention. I see Assemblywoman Sumter and team are here, so is John, are you looking for John or no? Is he? Okay, so I think out of, yeah. The important people are here, so we can go.
Good evening. Would you like to join me? Thank you so much.
And also Dr. Parker.
Dr. Parker, please join me. What an honor. This proclamation declaring September 2019 Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas suicide can be prevented, yet it continues to be a public health problem and a leading cause of death in the United States. And whereas in the state of New Jersey, one person dies by suicide every 11 hours, making it the second leading cause of death for ages 15 to 24, and the third leading cause of death for ages 25 to 34. And whereas, on average, nearly 129 Americans died by suicide each day, and 1.4 million Americans attempted suicide. And whereas each member of our community is valued and irreplaceable, and whereas talking openly about stress and psychological health builds trust, reduces barriers to care, and enables early intervention. And whereas local and statewide suicide prevention efforts should be developed and encouraged the maximum extent possible. And whereas the Township of Montclair is collaborating with Hackensack Meridian Health, Mountainside Medical Center, Mental Health Association of Essex and Morris, Montclair Board of Education, and other mental health professionals to ensure access to programs and available services, and to reinforce that suicide prevention is and remains a municipal priority. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Montclair in the County of Essex does hereby proclaim September 2019 as Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month and September 10th, 2019 as Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day in the Township of Montclair. And we're so honored to have Dr. Parker, the interim or acting superintendent of the Montclair Board of Education, and Assemblywoman Sumter, who is also, I'm not sure your capacity. I know you're with Mountainside, and you were part of the Women's Health Awareness because I participated with you, but whatever, what is your title there at Mountainside?
My title is Associate Vice President of Behavioral Health Services, so I actually run the services there.
So we want to thank both of you and give you a moment to share with us, and we're honored that you would both take time out of your very busy schedules to be with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the mayor, to this body of council members, to our partners in delivering mental health services, to Connie Booth. She's been with the hospital for a significant period of time to make sure that we deliver expert mental health services right here in our community. Mr. Fromhold, our CEO, has committed limitless, wink, wink, resources at the request of the mayor to make sure that we're providing a healthy community. You heard the statistics in the resolution that was read. It really does our heart proud that we're recognizing suicide prevention and awareness, and we're not afraid to talk about the issue, and we're breaking down barriers and silos to keep a healthy community. This should be a model for the state. In fact, I talk about the convening of all of your partners, including us, to address the issue of suicide and to make sure that we're talking about what we can do as corporate citizens, as well as healthcare providers, as well as school systems and the public servants to make sure that we're saving one life at a time. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you, Assemblywoman.
Thank you very much, and this is my first time in front of this austere group, so thank you for inviting me. This is a topic that is most perplexing and one that actually goes back. I remember where there was a time where my mother went into therapy, and I was a 16-year-old child. And at that point in time, that was a very unusual thing because I'm 74 years old. So there was a lot of stigma related to mental health, and to the extent that this can begin to this public recognition and can begin to further break down the stigma related to mental health, I think that's critically important. And I think there continues to be a stigma toward mental health. One of my close friends trains the young doctors in psychiatry at the Veterans Hospital in New York City, and it's even perplexing to the professionals in the field as to why suicide does take place to the extent that it does. I have, since I was retired, this is a area that I've been very came up with an idea. It's called Alternatives to Violence, and I've sort of linked together the notion that some of the killings of other people as well as killings towards self, there's not as much difference as we might think there is. I'm not a mental health official, so don't take that to the bank, but this is a sort of my theory that many of the people who do commit suicide are looking to solve a problem, and this is their way out. And if we could, and I've been thinking about this through the internet, if we could have drop-down menus to give people options to get help and to even delay for a moment their option to take their own life and to create a sudden death. I have some sort of creative ideas that may use technology to help that, because I'm not so sure that suicide hotlines, as they've been constructed, the people are going to pick up the phone and call some stranger, but if they do a drop-down menu, they might in fact get some relief and get some suggestions of how to get help. So that's just my idea. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Board of Education. I'm not speaking on behalf of the district, but this is just a personal value that I've had, and because I think there's a continual slide toward a lack of respect for human life in our country right now, which is extremely, extremely troubling. And it kind of starts with people just not having respect for one another. So I applaud the mayor, applaud the council for this resolution, and look forward to working with partners around Montclair. And it's an honor to be of service here in Montclair. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. And I do want to salute both of you for your leadership in all walks of life. And I'm very happy that you're able to be here. But Dr. Parker, I just want to, if you could just spend a minute talking about, and it's not just nuance, I think. You talked about sudden death versus suicide and some of the language that we use, and I think Assemblywoman had some of the same thoughts about the language that we use around this subject as well.
One of my many superintendencies, I could never keep a job or stay too long, was in Upper Saddle River. I was there for 11 years. When I came to Upper Saddle River as superintendent of schools, there'd been a series of 5 or 6 suicides. This is a K-8 district. And I can't remember whether it's parents or students, but it may be a combination of. And I remember the mental health officials in that area had gotten together, and they were seeing a linkage between suicides. There was a lot of copycats, and they could see that there were linkages. And at that point in time, this is 1991, that the notion of suicide almost became a, and I want to use the word romantic, but it became something that was cool to do almost, and it was a way, it was a strategy for ending a problem that someone might have, and it was actually working in collaboration with the police department. The police department were particularly perplexed with this because police are often the individuals who end up getting involved, and there were quite a few. The whole entire police department got really, really interested in the number of suicides that were taking place, and they consulted with a lot of mental health officials. They worked very hard, and they came up with the notion that using the term suicide tended to encourage more copycats than using just the word sudden death. And from that point on, the term sudden death was used if someone took their own life, as opposed to calling it a suicide. I know that's sort of counter to the notion that, of this particular proclamation, but I think it's an interesting concept too, and I don't have any scientific basis for saying that. This is just from experience. In the 11 years I was there was never any suicide, and I remember at my when people were celebrating we get out of Upper Saddle River, one of the police officers, said this was my compliment was that there were no suicides while I was superintendent of schools, which I frankly didn't have much to do with because they had figured this out way before I got there. But it stuck with me, and in my short time here, it's a little bit more than a month. A day doesn't go by where suicide is used in a fairly casual way, and hear it almost every day, and it's a little bit perplexing. So it's something to think about how we talk about these things, how we identify students. One of the things we did in Upper Saddle River was, it was at the time I was there when Columbine took place. I was there also when 9/11 took place, but the notion of, we used to think that the kid who was a troublemaker in the school was the kid who was going to do violence. But what we discovered back then, and we still haven't taken this to heart to the extent that I think we should have, it's the child or the adult who's isolated, and we developed a scheme for, we did every 6 months we did a screening of all the students in the Upper Saddle River schools to see who was isolated, and if they were isolated, we developed social networking for those students. Mm-hmm. And we also found that adults within the community also felt isolated. So, reducing the level of isolation of individuals seemed to really have a very positive effect, not only in committing, and so that's just one idea.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And thanks
Thank
again.
you both
Congratulations
so much.
for stepping forward.
Yeah, Assemblywoman, please.
Sure, if I may. Thank you, Dr. Parker, for framing that into context. A big part of today is to break down the walls of not talking about suicide, and making sure that we're aware of the pain that's resonating within our community, The other piece that I'm proud of is the task force that you've convened, that Brian makes sure he emails us and gets us all in the room, is to talk about what type of initiatives we can put in place. Part of it is the mental health first aid, making sure that we're training our teachers on the language to use, and that's coming forth down the line as we connect with Dr. Parker. We know you're new here, but you came at a very critical time for us into this community, and making sure that the resources we have that were available in the education system and the community know how to access them. Instead of it being a state of emergency, we're truly being proactive at your direction.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I can't commend you enough for convening us all together to work through these issues for a healthier community. So I'm excited.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I'd
Assemblywoman.
just like to move this proclamation into the record, and also note that this is something that is very, very near and dear to all of us at this particular time, as we are a community that is going through a healing process for sudden death in the past couple of year at least, and more. Like none other time that I can remember. And so my heart goes out to the families that have experienced sudden loss, and I'd like to move this into the record, and
Second.
I'm really grateful that we're having this opportunity to collaborate with partners, and hopefully we won't fail others.
All
All
in
in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bessel. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you. I will go to item B, Madam Clerk.
This is an ordinance to amend Section 347 zoning of the Code of the Township of Montclair, New Jersey.
Thank you. Mr. Krasik?
Mr. Mayor and Council, with regard to ordinance 019-30, in light of the substantive changes that the planning board recommended, which in their view were necessary to maintain consistency with the master plan, and also in light of the fact there's a numerical error in the original, it was an error written into the original ordinance that was introduced that requires correction, and it would be a substantive change. So the ordinance would have to be reintroduced in any case. I recommend that this ordinance be withdrawn.
I would actually like to talk about it, though. Can we do that for a second? Because there's one thing that particularly bothers me. And you might want to...
It's up to the chair.
We might want to incorporate this.
Well, we won't be incorporating it this evening. We would be...
No, but just so you know what I'm talking about. Okay. And on page 8 and 9, 6, 7, and 8, all deal with setbacks. 50-foot setback for interior lots, 50-foot on both sides for corner lots. I live on a corner lot. I've got about 13 feet on my side yard. When I applied a number of years ago to make a small deck, not going outside of the parameters of my side of my house, I had to apply for a variance. According to this, both sides of a house on a corner have to have a 50-foot setback. I have a 75-foot lot. I'm on my neighbor's property with the house. So it doesn't make any sense. I think that needs to be addressed.
Okay, I've noted.
Thank you.
Pass on to planning.
I make a motion to withdraw.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. C?
C is an ordinance, fully funded capital ordinance, providing for acquisition of flusher truck and refurbishing of sewer slip lining to remove infiltration.
Is there anyone present wishing to address this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Council?
Mayor? I'll just again note, I know we've all been very proud of this, but once again, looking at the dollars invested in infrastructure repair, I think this really puts us ahead of so many other places in terms of really investing in what's going to have a long-term impact. I think we've been very focused on putting these dollars in, which we know will have a return for certainly this township in the near, mid, and long term. And again, we see this as an example where we're, again, putting dollars in infrastructure, sewer line repairs, et cetera, to make sure that we're able to really have things that are in place for many years to come. So, again, pleased with this piece.
And it's fully funded.
Yes.
I'm sure the mayor will be speaking to that.
Yeah, just go right, oh, you go right ahead. Yes. Thank you, Councilor Spill. I do want to add that it is fully funded, meaning that we are not borrowing money to pay for this. This is pay-as-you-go, and this is where we, ultimately want to end up with all of our capital spending, that we're not borrowing. We got a little ways to go, but certainly it's a first step, and I think our utilities are really making great progress in that regard. Any other comments? Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. We have two items on a consent agenda, a resolution incorporating some revenue into our budget for the Municipal Alliance Grant Program, and also to refund some developer escrow accounts. I so move. Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. Councilor Slager?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor. Whereas invoices against the Township of Montclair in favor of the following persons for the amount set opposite their respective names have been received, duly audited, and found correct. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Montclair, in the County of Essex, that said invoices be, and they are hereby ordered paid, and that checks be drawn by the Finance Department to the order of such persons for the amounts respectively and thereafter stated on computer printout attached hereto and made a part hereof. This bill list is dated September 24th, 2019 for $21,857,005.33, and I so move.
Second.
Question, discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. Council, comments from staff. Madam Clerk, anything? Madam Clerk, any comments or reports?
No comment.
Mr. Stafford?
None tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Scantlebury?
No comment, Mayor.
Mr. Karasik?
Just to say that I'll be distributing copies of several ordinances for the council to look at over the next few weeks for the discussion at the October 15th meeting. So I just wanted to let you know, keep an eye out for them. I'll give you hard copies because it seems like those are the easier to read. So other than that, nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Council? Councilor Baskerville?
I'd just like to congratulate the firefighters that were sworn in today. Although I was not able to physically be there, I was with them in spirit, and congratulations. Very excited about the members that joined the ranks of our outstanding fire department. So I'd just like to send out a note of congratulations to all of them. I'd also like to note that this weekend was the start of a new season for the Montclair Orchestra. And Mayor Jackson and I don't know if anybody else from the council was there, were able to attend, and it was just an incredible performance, the 1001 Nights. And they had Gabriela Rey and Matab Faruji and some other people that came and just really brought life and energy to an incredible orchestra. And so I'm really excited about where they're going. I thought it was really right on point for Montclair, and Mayor Jackson, you might have agreed that we had one woman from Nicaragua that was singing, and then we had a sister from Iran, and she narrated the entire thing that she did in Arabic. And I just thought it was so wonderful that under the leadership of David Chen and the rest of the Montclair orchestra, they're including, everybody from different backgrounds, and the music is second to none. So I encourage everybody that is able to, buy a ticket, get a membership, or in some kind of way support them, and take, young people as well, because I think it's something that is for the whole family. So I'd like to encourage people to support that. Also, the Kiwanis Club of Montclair had their inaugural meeting of this new session. They, after 10-year hiatus, they took on new members on Saturday, and that was interesting. I went over there and tried to learn about the what the Kiwanis are about and what their charge is, and as I read it, they're a lot in alignment with the things that I'm interested in, family and children, and helping people in many ways. So I'm going to continue to look into their charter, and I know Mayor Jackson, you joined this weekend, right? I mean, did other members join?
I don't know.
No.
I'm a former key clubber, so I felt fresh.
Former key clubber. I think Deputy Manager Scantleberry is a member, and some other people. So as people look for ways to volunteer in our community, and if you're not familiar with them, I think it's good to just become familiar with the different volunteer groups that you might be interested in. And it's good because we want all of you to participate and in some way volunteer for this great township, and that's just one of the many opportunities, and I wasn't that familiar with it. So, I just wanted to mention that to people, that they are starting up. I think their first meeting will be tomorrow night. So if you're interested, go on the webpage for the Montclair Kiwanis or Facebook, and it will let you know the location and the time. Also had an excellent opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with the Montclair Child Development Center. It was celebrating their 50th anniversary of outstanding education for young children ages 3 to 5, and they had a family fun day in Glenfield Park, and it looked like there were about 500 or 600 children and family members just coming together in love and kindness and joy, and celebrating all of the great things that MCDC has done over the last 50 years. So congratulations to them. I've been blessed to be able to participate in various ways with MCDC over the last 50 years, and I'm committed to continue to do so. And I'd like to congratulate the director, Tanya Poteet, for her outstanding leadership, as well as the entire staff there. We heard about the Rising Mount Zion from Mr. Scott. I'd like to thank Mr. Scott for making that all possible. Rising Mount Zion has been probably one of the oldest churches in our township forever. I think that the Rising Mount Zion Church has been in Reverend Campbell's family for, I know I'm going to mess this up, it was like 90 years or something. 81 years, okay, so I messed it up. I knew it was a lot of years. And so Pastor Elizabeth Campbell is still there and doing great things. And so I went there and we enjoyed that. And you heard from Mr. Scott how it brought people from all over the township from various backgrounds together. Again, just celebrating one another, uplifting one another in spirit, in song. Denise Hamilton was the MC, and she was also providing outstanding music. And she had, music that you more commonly hear in clubs and that type of thing, but she also had some spiritual music, and people seemed to be able to relate to that as well. So that was a wonderful weekend. And for all the people that had block parties, there was so many block parties this last weekend, I couldn't even count them. I went to 4 of them on Saturday, and I went to 2 on Sunday, and I missed 2. So the 2 blocks that I was not able to make it to, know that it was just a matter of me not being able to be there, and it wasn't in my heart. And I would have loved to have been able to make all of them, but the time didn't permit me. So thank you so much for all of you that continue to include me and invite me, and for as much as I can be there with you, I will be. And for the times that I can't be with you, know that I am very often with you in spirit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few pieces before I also update on a few things and thank a few individuals. Just wanted to first, for information, put out the fact that with regard to the bag ordinance that we've seen before us come before us and the discussions that are ongoing for how that will move forward. Good news is a group had met with the manager, assistant manager, a number of others representing the large business entities in town, the Quick Checks, the Acme, so on and so forth. Good news is they are very supportive of the ordinance as they have it, and some of the discussion moved forward around bifurcating this into something that applies to the big entities that would like something before the holidays was their only request. And they looked at it virtually as written, is how they were comfortable with it. And then continuing and therefore allowing the conversations around the smaller, mid-sized businesses to continue to move forward and make sure people are comfortable with however that moves forward. So wanted to announce that here so that in the next meetings we can start to see some of that language and review it, but also knowing and understanding that those entities have met and looked at it and are comfortable with it and asking that it move forward. Their request was, and the others here can speak to it as well, that it just happened before the holidays was their big piece. They didn't want that during that transition. So to note, but everyone will see that as it moves forward in the next meeting or so, Mr. Mayor.
Was your plan to introduce that?
Probably the next meeting or so, Mr. Mayor, which was substantively similar to the last piece. They had a couple little pieces that they asked to have change, and again, theirs was more of an implementation time frame where, we're creeping into the holiday season rather quickly, and they'd like to see that soon. But we also looked at it and said, if these entities are ready, and they said, look, being that they're national, they've done this in a lot of places, it's already implemented, why not split this apart from the other entities that aren't equipped, if you will, to kind of just move on something like this? That an update piece. The second one is more to Mr. Stafford. I know you've reached out to some individuals to kind of get some answers and hoping we could address some of the components maybe tonight. Certainly we all know the inconveniences that naturally happen when there's development or construction going on in any part of town. I know that a number of residents had reached out with regard to the Seymour Street project. I certainly will say, first and foremost, appreciative to the residents, and including myself in that neighborhood, who kind of deal with the challenges that come with that project. Also, I appreciate your efforts and in reaching out to those involved in the site construction, that they have been very responsive when community members have reached out to me, and I've passed that along. They've responded to you and tried to remedy the situation, so I'm appreciative of that. But tonight I would like to just talk a little bit about the staging of some of the construction vehicles. Certainly in the last bit of time, comes in waves primarily. There was a lot of cement pouring, I imagine. There was a number of trucks lined up that once again seemed to be on all the residential streets around there. Personally saw some of it and some challenges even from some of our mail trucks to navigate all the vehicles that were blocking the streets. So with that, I was hoping that you could share in your conversations what are some of the plans around how we have a staging area that not only is in place, but also that everyone's aware of, meaning the subcontractors or some of the other entities that are reporting to the site, where those big, large vehicles that are idling for some considerable periods of time and are large for our smaller residential streets there can be staged, and then know when to come over and how that's coordinated, and how we really, despite that I know we've had a staging area in place, make sure it's utilized and have some systems in place that, it's not 30 emails I'm sending you every time it happens with pictures, et cetera, that we're addressing this.
Sure. And what I'd like to say is, when I received your emails on Saturday morning, I turned them around rather quickly and did so to the developer's representative, who, as you noted, is extremely responsive. And as is typical, I had a response within probably an hour and a half. And the response was, listen, I'll call you Monday morning, first thing, we'll get together, we'll talk about this. We did speak on Monday morning. Yesterday, we actually met today. And I invited the gentleman who you see at the back of the room, both developers representatives as well as construction representatives. We got together in person with members of our police department leadership team. You can see Deputy Chief Young and Lieutenant Ignazzo in the back of the room as well. Chief Conforti, who participated in the meetings and in discussions yesterday and the meetings today, unfortunately had a family conflict, so he couldn't attend tonight, so he sends his regrets. And what I think would be most prudent, although I defer to you, is to hear from the gentleman directly. They're here so that you can hear from them what their plans are, what they want, what they will be doing to minimize the impact on the area directly and promptly. So unless you object.
No, not at all.
I'd like to call the gentleman up. They can introduce themselves. You can hear from them directly. Like I said, we met earlier today, this afternoon. It's a cogent plan. I believe it to be a plan that will result in success. I know our police department representatives, leadership team representatives have also made their suggestions, which were received favorably. So I defer to Mr. Giuliano.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and the township governing body. My name is Dennis Giuliano. I'm a vice president with Iron State Development, and in that capacity, responsible on behalf of our partnership with Brookfield Properties to oversee the day-to-day development at the Seymour Street redevelopment project. So I'd like to start just by apologizing that our trucks have impacted quality of life for neighborhood residents. Certainly, though, while we're building a big project, we completely agree that a residential neighborhood is not the appropriate place to stage heavy equipment, nor is it an appropriate place to create issues for residents in circulation and municipal services. To that end, we've worked together with our general contractor, a representative of which is here tonight, to develop a three-pronged approach that we think will finally and ultimately resolve this issue. So I'll get into that quickly. Number one is that we will completely obviate the ability of trucks to even stage in the residential area by withholding the ultimate address from them. We'll send them directly to Lackawanna, the Lackawanna lot rather, which essentially will serve as a holding pen for trucks until the time that they're ready to travel to the site. So that'll be managed by Katerra with 2 laborers with 2-way radios, basically one at Seymour Street, one at Lackawanna, ensuring that a truck is not released to the site until there's ability for the site to hold it and for the truck not to be staged within the neighborhood. Second point, we will keep a max of 2 trucks at the property, one of which will be actively pouring concrete, the second of which will be waiting to pour concrete as long as it can fit within the fenced confines of the construction site. So in other words, not in the neighborhood. And the third point is that we will be sure to send a laborer or other contractor employee to Roosevelt and the other residential neighborhoods to patrol them essentially and ensure that there's no errant trucks finding their way there, circumventing the proper staging protocol. So we feel this approach will work because it's simple, it's easy to institute, it's easy to control, and easy to explain to contractors and truckers who are often a couple levels disparate from the management of the project. So just before I conclude on that plan, I'd just like to say that we at ownership, and I think at Katerra as well, welcome direct communications with residents and those with grievances, and as we have in the past. We think that benefits everyone to deal directly with residents, and we're happy to do so, whether in person, email, phone, or whatever is most convenient for the parties. And then finally, I know we've created a lot of work for the Montclair Police Department, and we'd just like to acknowledge how much of how pleasant they are to work with, and how patient they've been with us as we've brought in thousands of trucks to and from the site.
Thank you. I'll say first and foremost, I appreciate the speed, all of you that have responded to this. I would assume that our police department doesn't really have anything further to add to this, or I see heads shaking no. So I'm glad you were involved, though, in the planning on this. And so again, I go back to I appreciate, Mr. Stafford, you moving those along quickly. And us looking for a resolution. I also am appreciative that you even started, appropriately so, with an apology for everyone in the area. I know it's frustrating at times. I know that people are, most there trying to work within what's there and what's happening, and are supportive, but still want to obviously maintain that quality of life. So thank you for that start. Thank you for having a quick plan. It seems to be a very concise plan, to your point. I'm not an expert, but those things sounded pretty simple to me, and something that you can control. And I would just ask that we continue to check in through the manager on this to make sure it is working. And as other issues pop up, certainly we'll convey them to make sure they're addressed, or ask that you help address them. So thank you for that as well. And thank you for taking the time to be here tonight.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giuliano.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, just as we're going on this, thank you, Mr. Manager, again. Thank you to everyone involved there. Mr. Mayor, I know I saw you there. I wanted to just really say it was, once again, pretty powerful for us to participate in the Sophia Walk that we were at. And really, when we talk about domestic violence and the challenges that we see there, it's unfortunately something we continue to have to push towards. I know even many of the people who spoke talking about that we would much rather a situational world where we don't have to keep attending these events and keep talking about this, but unfortunately we do. But we all have a role in making sure that we do everything we can to reduce domestic violence, and I think that's one way we as a community come together for that work, so certainly important there. Also, I did see well, a number of my colleagues, and I know you guys were there right after at the Kiwanis Club, and you mentioned the Key Club Mayor, with the educational component there. As I asked about what some of their key pieces moving forward, that was one of them that they talked about as one of the first things they were going to address. So it was nice they were having a ceremony to kind of reconstitute and move forward, and many of us, almost all of us, were able to take part in that. So that's great there as well. But I really think so much going on. I just want to also personally thank our mayor at the time, Councilman Rousseau, for the 9/11 memorial that I know we all are part of in some way, either at the county level or here locally, and I know you've been such a driving force in making sure, as we all know, that we never forget. So thank you for that work, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I just say something on that? Thanks, Sean, for reminding me, but I know we did do something impromptu. It was not something we planned. We didn't have a formal event, but I want to thank Police Chief Conforti and Deputy Chief Will Young and the Fire Chief John Herman and his two deputies for being there, along with the mayor and with Deputy Mayor Councilor McMahon and others who did come out. We have a very nice little setting. I'd like everybody to know that you should go to Watchung Plaza, see what the great flowers and plants and the work of sprucing up the little park area where the monument is. Rob Bianco from our staff did a lot of that work, and the parks and rec people do the work. But the three families, again, that are still, part of our town, Kestenbaum, Collins family, and Diana Stewart, we had nice messages from all of them thanking us for doing that. They went to the New York site, actually, this year, and maybe we should start planning a year from now, manager and council, planning a year from now to have the 20th anniversary, which is something we hate to commemorate a tragedy like this, but the 9/11 tragedy that hit Montclair, we had the most people who were lost in any town in Essex County, as you know, Mayor. So Essex County does a great job of commemorating the 67, I think, who lost their lives in Essex. Montclair has 9 families who were hurt by that terrible tragedy, and 3 still live here, and so we still want to commemorate that when we can. I just wanted to mention one other thing, because I was so impressed with the work here. I know Brian had a lot to do with this, Brian Scantlebury and, Sue Pertuzzi. We had Karen Sachs of FUMTA, and we have Elizabeth Morgan, our manager at the shelter. But the George to the Rescue program, which I think is going to be on, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, on October 5th, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on NBC TV, is something we saw a preview of, and it's just wonderful, wonderful work that was done by all of you to get this back area of the shelter fixed up and have terrific coverage of what we're doing in Montclair with the animals. And last thing is, I did see a wonderful movie at the Claridge the other night with my wife. I just wanted to mention everybody, I'm a good friend of Jerry Brown, the governor of California, just retired, and he was about 5 minutes in this movie. It's called Linda Ronstadt, Sound of My Voice, and everybody who attended it was very impressed with this whole history of Linda Ronstadt, a great singer from the past, but she's kind of lost her voice now with Parkinson's. And tremendous movie at the Claridge. I recommend everybody see Linda Ronstadt, Sound of My Voice, and then you get the little view of Governor Brown with her, that they were good friends for a while, and we're still in touch. And Jerry asked me, he said if he comes out here, he's going to want to stay at a Montclair hotel. I said the MC and the George are ready for you. So thanks very much, Mayor, for coming out on 9/11. Thank you.
My pleasure. My honor. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we've been discussing, it's a busy time of year for us here in Montclair. All very good events, very meaningful events. Had the pleasure of spending, I think, the whole day with you on Saturday, Mr. Mayor. We started with a bocce tournament for Backpacks for Life and Dreams Can Happen over at Verona Park, which was a very meaningful event as well. And then we also went over to the MCDC event over in the park, and it was great to see so many people there. It was a really good afternoon all the way around. And I too picked up an application when we were at the luncheon at the Kiwanis Club, so I will be joining as well and looking forward to many great things going forward. In addition, it was a busy day. After that, we headed over, I think we judged the pie eating contest over at the Upper Montclair.
Zion first.
Oh, that's right, we stopped at Zion first, exactly. Thank you, Mr. Scott. It was great to see you there as well, and it was a great event, and I actually got up at one point, and I danced with Pastor Campbell in the street. It was a good event. We left there, and we went over to the pie eating contest at that point, and then judged that. That was a great event by little
And who ate a
Daisy.
pie?
I was building up into it,
okay,
actually.
okay.
I've got my notes right here, Robin. Put your glasses on. And it was a great event there. In case you didn't know, Councilwoman Schlager had a pie, and she did very well with her pie.
What kind of pie?
It was a cream pie, actually, vanilla cream pie. No blueberry this year, no. It was a little bit more difficult, I think, with the cream, because you couldn't breathe when get that up. Then we left there, and we walked the Upper Montclair Business Association sidewalk sale, which was a tremendous event. A lot of people went out for that. It was very well attended. And then we walked over to Art in the Park over at Anderson Park, which was also very well attended. So a full day in Montclair, many great events. In addition to that, had the privilege of participating yesterday morning with Deputy Mayor McMahon at the swearing in and promotions for the Montclair Police Department. Salute all the work that you all do for us in the community. And then this morning, Deputy Mayor McMahon and I attended the swearing in for the fire department, which was another great event. And in addition to that, we had the opportunity to participate last week in the YMCA of the Oranges, a golf event, another great cause. It was a lot of fun, and Councilwoman Schlager, it was good to see you there as well, and keep up the good work with the Y. It was a great event. Other than that, Mr. Mayor, not much going on.
Sounds like a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I didn't do that much.
Want my notes?
Oh, my goodness. Between Renee Baskerville, oh, wow, you people are busy. But the mayor and Councilwoman Baskerville and I did participate in the MFEE, the Montclair Fund for Educational Excellence, amazing fundraiser a week ago Saturday. And our hats off to them. They've raised over $100,000 that day for that event, which is really quite amazing, and all that money goes back into our school system. So hats off to the MFEE and our team, our 3TC. We participated in one of the 7 or 8 events. We didn't do so well, so we couldn't move on to the next one, but we were there in spirit and our yellow shirts, and I think Renee got hit with a water balloon or two, maybe in the challenge. But it was great fun for a great cause. So thanks.
We had the privilege of two of the largest classes swearing in. It was 6 police officers on Monday and 10 firefighters on Tuesday, so and it's very exciting. There's 5 brand new ones in the fire department, and they're a great bunch of guys. Speaking of emergency services, the ambulance unit we haven't talked about lately. On October 19th, these are the third annual Duck Derby, which is in Edgemont Park, which is it goes from roughly 1 to 4. And it's a great, really family event. There's music, there's food, there's usually a hayride. I don't know if it's gonna be there this year, and kind of culminates in the great piece of weird Americana called a Duck Derby. You got to be there to appreciate it. But it's a great event. It should be a great day, and look forward to seeing you there. Although my son's also has another wedding event on that day.
Get married again.
he's getting the big party. Yeah, this was the little party. This,
It's the same son.
Must be nice.
You never know.
Same girl.
Parties.
Okay.
Same girl, same son, more parties.
A lot of parties.
Yeah, I just want to commend all my colleagues. Obviously, it's a very, very busy time, and, you know, it's just wonderful on these weekends to see what's going on in our town. People are doing so many great things and having fun, but at the same time, and as you can hear in almost all these causes, raising money and bringing awareness to great causes and being supportive. I think it just speaks so much about our citizenry and what a great town we have, what great people we have here in the Township of Montclair and the surrounding areas, because we do get people who come to these events who are not just, you know, from Montclair. So great things going on in town. I just want to commend everybody for being so engaged and so involved. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yoo-hoo.